Hey, how are you doing today? Hope your day is well, and if not, I hope it gets better. So, what I'm doing here is, it started as sort of a test page, but really, I think it's a first page. A first page, a first page to a comic book. And yes, by that I do mean, in fact, that I am planning a rather large project, which I will be happy to share with you in a little bit closer to the midpoint of the video. But at first, I will explain what I am doing here in the video and how to make a comic book page. So the first thing you have to do, well, besides, designing your characters, building your world, getting your story ready and stuff like that, once you've got all of the pre-production ready, what you need to do is plan out your page, sort of the way that your panels are going to be laid out. And when you do, you can start sketching, and of course things change over time as you go. But once you've got, like, I did a rough sketch in blue, as you can see, and then I do an inking layer over that. And I always use a ton of different layers. It helps the creative process to be a little easier. That way I don't, if I mess something up, I can, make that layer disappear, and then, but I haven't ruined the layer beneath it. As long as you keep track of what layer you're painting on. So for the inking lines, I use the brush Classic Cartoonist. And then on the painting layer, which goes beneath my inking lines, I use the, I believe it's called Ultimate Inking, which is kind of funny that I use an inking brush for painting. And possibly that's, this page took a very long time to do. And probably part of that is because instead of using the paint bucket tool to fill in large areas of color quickly, I brush painted it, which gives you more control, especially if you're using wet media brushes. You can do some blending, but you have the potential of crashing Photoshop, which happened to me several times, especially since I was recording, so yeah. But next time I think I'll probably use a quicker workflow. However, for some things, you just gotta do it. You gotta do it the hard way, or it's not gonna look good. So, as you can see, when I was drawing the moon, to get sort of the texture of it, is two different layers. The glow layer, which I usually use the soft line tool to make large glow areas, and then just kind of change the opacity on that layer. I use it for the lights coming from the house later on. And then for the moon, for the detail on it, I painted it with, I think it was also the soft brush, and then smudged it with the smudge tool to kind of give it extra detail. And as you can see with the mountains and the forest, I start with a base color and then paint a darker shade for shadows or a lighter shade for shine. to kind of give contrasting hues, to give depth and detail. And then especially on the forest, I use the smudge tool a lot to kind of give it that extra detail. So I have the background color layers, then I have like the foreground color layers, and then I have the character color layers. And that helps keep it all separate. And easy to handle. For the stars, I would do well, you can see I did like blue for the lighter ones, or the fainter ones, and then put a white dot in the middle of the brighter ones. For coloring, and I really tried to play with temperature in this, which I haven't done before, so it took me a lot longer. But sort of using color to convey sort of the temperature and mood of the lighting in the scene. So here, for instance, you see sort of his base skin color is the well-lit parts of his face, and then the colder bluish color is used to kind of convey how, you know, in the dark at night, you're not going to see the color as intently. And it's going to appear a little softer and a little cooler than it would during the day or in lamplight or whatever. So I really started with a lot of like sort of desaturated colors and stuff than his character would normally have, and then use sort of the brighter colors as just the highlights. Like in his hair here, I even went as far as using dark blue for like the shadows in his hair. Also, you'll notice me make multiple corrections to that bottom right panel. I just kept forgetting things all the time on that final panel. But it eventually turned out alright. So I tried to use like detail done through color as well as through inking, because I think that helps add to it as well. And especially with highlights and stuff, I'm not really sure what else to talk about the art workflow. So if you have any more questions about that, go ahead and put them in the comments, and I'll see if I can address them in the next video. So I'll go ahead and start talking about the project now. So basically, it's not too hard to see that this is a some sort of medieval fantasy comic book, and it's part of a larger world-building thing that had been circulating in my mind for quite some time. And originally I was gonna like try to tell all the stories and all the world building I had done and all that stuff, and really this was the part of the story that interested me the most. It was sort of a generational tale the way that it was originally being told, and this was like part 3, so the rest of it was much more like Lord of the Rings in scope, telling how the elves and the mythical creatures came to live in the same world as the humans, but then, even though it had these huge battles and giant political intrigue and all that good stuff, this was always my favorite part, because it was supposed to end, initially it was supposed to end in this sort of small, simple story of this human boy and this elvish girl who go on an adventure. And I don't know, I just came to love this part of the story more than the rest of it, so I thought, if I'm going to tell any of it, why not start with the part I'm most invested in? That way I'll put forth the best work. So, this, to me, kind of has an almost Miyazaki feel to it. Sort of like that adventure of imagination, almost, you know. Almost simple story of these two kids who go out and have an adventure, and really that was something that always spoke to me, I guess, is because that's how I was as a kid. Was I always dreamt of having these adventures, and you know, when you grow up or have those adventures, it's not quite what you might have initially expected it to be like, but nonetheless, you never give up on that sort of imagination, because now, like for me, I put it to work, put it to use in other ways, telling these stories and drawing these pictures. So, this is something that, you know, even though it might not initially seem as like deep or dark as some of the other so-called important stories, I feel like these sort of almost child adventure stories, they have as much a meaning and a part in life as some of the bigger, grander works of art. So I thought this would be a nice starting point for, you know, just something to try the comic book medium. And it's not just a comic book, because my brother and I were talking, and we were thinking about possibly going beyond just the comic book and making sort of almost like a magazine. We're going to see about kind of self-publishing it, sort of, not in print, more in like digital media, at least for now. So it'll include whatever comic book series I'm working on at the time, and then also some concept art for other projects. I'm thinking about trying a animation series, possibly. And then we'll also include some of my brother's work. He does writing. He'll probably do some serials and some short stories or flash fiction where it's just like 1 or 2 pages. And then we might see if some of our friends want to get in on this as well. Let them contribute, like some artwork or short story writing, or, you know, each month have a different guest contributor. Or if they want to have like a serialized thing or a recurring thing that they want to do, a segment, they can have that as well, so we can get some more content in the magazine of sorts. I guess it's kind of inspired by the old Lego magazines with Bionicle comic, but you know, that's me. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to know more about the project, feel free to contact me. I hope you have a great rest of your day.